Welcome to Vision. Watch with us today as we take a look at shooting slow motion right on our iPhones. Let's go. This is my iPhone 7. It shoots slow motion at up to 240 frames per second, and it fits in my pocket. Now, because my standard timeline only needs 24 frames per second to simulate motion, 1 second shot at 240 FPS can be stretched to 10 seconds on my timeline. The results of this are pretty damn amazing. Apple brought slow motion footage to its smartphone with the introduction of Apple's iPhone 5S in 2013. Recording 120 frames per second at 720p HD, it gave casual users the chance to capture whatever they wanted in proper high frame rate slow-mo. Since, iPhones have gained 240 FPS shooting at 720p, and in 2016, the iPhone 6S introduced 120 frames per second shooting in full 1080p HD. When viewed side by side, you can see how frame rate impacts the look of slow motion. When slowed down, 240 FPS plays back the same moment twice as long as 120 FPS. But with 120 FPS recorded at 1080p, we get twice the pixel count and an image we can honestly call sharp. Comparing the footage to 720p footage shot side by side, the 720p footage looks almost out of focus. And the 60 FPS footage looks great too, but it doesn't quite give the same effect as higher frame rates do when conformed to our 24p timeline. Okay, so enough about how the footage looks. How do we shoot it? First, we're going to ditch the iPhone's stock camera app for something that gives us more control over the camera's settings. For this, we use Filmic Pro. You can pick it up in the App Store for $14.99. We recommend shooting with a tripod to start, as you'll get the steadiest shots and keep things simple. You can also use other stabilizers, just make sure that your phone is steady while you're shooting. As we jump into the app, remember that if you're using another similar app, or say, a real camera, all of these concepts will work no matter what platform you shoot on. It's time to set up our camera. To get started, we'll set our camera's resolution to 1080p and the quality to Filmic Extreme. As we talked about before, we prefer shooting at 120 FPS if possible, so we'll set our frame rate there and move right into adjusting the exposure settings. First, we're going to set and lock our shutter speed at double our frame rate. Overall, even more than just shooting at a cinematic frame rate like 24p, following this rule when shooting most footage will do wonders for giving you smooth, natural, and pleasing motion, or the film look. To us, it just looks better. Call it what you want. It's tempting to use shutter speed to control exposure, but when shooting video, set it and forget it. On Filmic, we'll do this by dragging our exposure wheel down till we get a reading of 1/240th, then we'll double tap to lock it. Once it's red, you're good to go, and the exposure wheel will only affect the ISO setting. As soon as we lock the shutter, especially if we're shooting indoors or at night, we see we're going to need much more light than when shooting footage at normal speed. That brings us to our Vision pro tip: bring more lights. Because we need to shoot at a higher shutter speed to avoid motion blur, that means our sensor gets less time per frame to gather light. How much less? Well, assume we shoot at 30 FPS following our shutter rule. We can see our sensor gets 2 4, or even 8 times longer to gather light than when shooting at high frame rates.
A simple solution is to shoot outdoors, but remember, much like this scene, even with a higher shutter speed, your scene may still be too bright. So find some shade or bring a filter to help control your exposure.
Next up is adjusting your ISO, or the camera's sensitivity to light. We normally keep this as low as possible, which on Filmic Pro seems to be 22. So, as is preferable with almost all cameras, if you can, set your ISO as low as it will go and light your scene into proper exposure. We'll next lock in our focus. Drag your focus box over your subject and wait for the camera to come into sharp focus. Once it does, tap on the box to lock your focus. Now, you're ready to record. Shoot through the take and remain steady even after the action's done to get the best shots. You'll thank yourself when you move into editing. We'll talk about that in another video. Just know the possibilities are endless. Thanks for watching our iPhone slow motion video. Click the link in the description if you want to learn more about shooting iPhone slow motion video. It's got a link to our blog which outlines even more stuff we didn't have time to go over in this video. If you like the video, give it a like. Let us know what you thought in the comments down below. Subscribe for more great content, and we'll see you in the next video.